Friends, I've been asked, as you just heard, to speak to you about the idea of a global ethic. First of all, I would like to remember the name of my very good friend, Professor Hans Küng, originally from Switzerland, but having taught at the University of Tübingen in Germany for many decades. He's really the founder of the modern idea of a global ethic movement. Unfortunately, his health doesn't allow him to be here. First thing we ought to do is figure out, what do we mean when we talk about a global ethic? Simply, it means, first of all, ethic, of course, are the principles that we have for ourselves of what is right and what is wrong. A global ethic simply is finding out that, in fact, when we look around and investigate the principles of ethics of all of the different religious and philosophical systems in the world, we find out that there are basic ethical principles which all have in common. We can see this in the fundamental negatives: don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, etc. But it goes also in the positive. Think in terms of the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule, as far as we can tell, was first articulated perhaps by Zoroaster or perhaps by Confucius, at any rate, 6th, 7th century BCE, so over 2,500 years ago. We all share that. And why is this important? Well, because until not terribly recently, we all thought we lived all by ourselves. Well, as a matter of fact, we did all live by ourselves until the very modern period. And now, of course, all we have to do is reach into our pockets and we're everywhere at once. The world has radically changed, and so it's important for us humans to recognize that, in fact, we do have the same basic ethical principles in common. And this then tells us we should act together in the ways that our shared ethics tell us, namely, you love your neighbor as you love yourself. This is the Golden Rule. If notice, that means, not like some of us have learned, I as a Catholic learned from the 1930s. I was born in 1929, the beginning of the Great Depression. We're just getting over it now, I hope. I was taught we're supposed to shrink our self, our ego. No, I think that's not what the Golden Rule means. It's quite the opposite. We need to expand our ego, expand our self, so that it includes not only me here, my brothers, sisters, relatives, friends, city, nation, world. We need to expand it so that it includes all, everything. And now, more recently, we are learning that it needs to include not just us fellow humans, but the whole world, the animals, the plants, the rocks, the universe, and however we understand the source and the goal of it all. I would like to suggest that this all needs to be based on dialogue, because we've lived so alone by ourselves for so long. We need to learn the technology, the technique of dialogue, which simply means, and because it's simple, we usually miss it. It means, I want to talk to you who think differently from me, not so I can tell you the truth, dummy. Rather, I want to talk to you so I can learn. Because, and I want to teach you a little mantra. And listen carefully, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to invite you to recite it after me. Nobody knows everything about anything. Therefore, dialogue. Can we try it? Nobody knows everything. A little bit louder. About anything. therefore dialogue. Think about it. If I don't know, what chemist would get up in the morning and say, I know everything about chemistry, I don't need to go to the laboratory anymore? Or what physicist or sociologist? And yet about religion, the most complicated, comprehensive discipline in the world, the ultimate meaning of life, we say, oh, we know everything. I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a whatever, and if you're not the same as me, you're wrong. Unfortunately, that's just clearly mistaken. Now, that means we need to engage in dialogue. We can talk about dialogue, can talk about it for a long time. 2 words, 2 parts, logos, dia, together and thinking or speaking together. That's what the word dialogue means from the Greek. We need to learn how to do that. And I would say there are basically sort of 4 dimensions of dialogue that we humans can and need to engage in. One is the dialogue of the head, where together we search for the truth. The dialogue of the hands, where together we work for the good. And dialogue of the heart, where we share our expressions of beauty and the inner spirit of our humanness, and the dialogue of the whole, or the holy. The word holy in English comes ultimately from the Greek holos, which means whole, complete, full. So to be a holy person doesn't mean to go around with your hands folded. That's okay, but that doesn't really do anything for you. To be holy means to be complete, full human. And so we need to have dialogue of the head, the hands, the heart, and the whole. Now, besides dialogue, we also need to have what I think of as the other side of the coin of dialogue in our humanness, namely critical thinking. We don't want to simply share our ignorance. We want to together to search more deeply the meaning of things, the understanding, the grasping of reality as much as we possibly can. I talk about the 3 W's, ask questions. Critical thinking simply means ask questions. First question is, what? What exactly do you mean when you're talking about A, B, C, or whatever it happens to be? You think to yourself, well, this is so obvious, it's so simple. Right. Precisely because it is obvious, we miss it. The second, of course, is not only what, but the next question is whence? Where does this information come from? Is this a first-hand information, third-hand, somebody who's favorable toward the idea of an opponent? We need to think carefully. Where do we get this information that we say X is the case? And the third W, 3 W's, is whither. What are the consequences of our claim that X is the truth when it gets applied to different places? And if it turns out that it is a disaster when applied somewhere else, we need to go back and rethink all of the thoughts that we had to get to where we are, and even our beginning assumptions. Otherwise, remember, how we understand the world determines how we act in the world. Think about that. That's very, very important. Now, those of you who are going to hang around later on, there is going to be some sessions on working on the concrete details on how to engage in dialogue seriously and how to put it into practice. Not high abstract ideas, but very practical, everyday kinds of things. Because we need to engage in dialogue on the highest level, political, intellectual, archbishops, cardinals, imams, rabbis, and so on, but also on the grassroots level, because that's where the rubber hits the road. I could say much more, but I think that brevity is the soul of wit, and I want to be witty here, at least in that sense. And so I'm going to close by asking you if you could try one more time to recite that mantra of nobody knows everything about anything, therefore dialogue. Shall we try it? Nobody knows everything about anything, therefore dialogue. Thank you.